Hello and welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Teniola Shuboale. We begin in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the Electoral Commission says at least 8,000 electronic voting machines are known to have been destroyed in the fire overnight at a depot in Kinshasa. That is more than two-thirds of the number needed for the capital city's 4 million voters. These machines are controversial, as many believe they could be used to rig the vote, and a number of opposition candidates have been calling for them to be banned. The Election Commission for now says the process will continue, with polls set for the 23rd of December. In the past few days, there have been clashes with police at campaign meetings, and a number of people have been injured and some reportedly killed. Several opposition candidates have called for an investigation into the blaze, expressing concerns about further delays. Meanwhile, the UK has changed its travel advice to British citizens in the country, asking all non-essential diplomatic staff to leave the DRC by the 17th of December. We'll be having more of that in due time, but moving on now. Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki has arrived for his first ever visit to Somalia in another sign of rapidly changing relations in the region. Eritrea's information minister said President Isaias landed in Mogadishu and headed to the Somali president's office, as the historic visit is in part and parcel of the consultative tripartite summit of the heads of state and government of Eritrea, Ethiopia and Somalia. The three countries have been mending their sometimes fraught relations since Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed took office in April. In July, Somalia and Eritrea said they plan to establish diplomatic relations. Past Somali administrations had accused Eritrea of supplying weapons to anti-government Islamist insurgents. Asmara has repeatedly denied this, saying the accusations were made up by its enemy, Ethiopia. In 2007, Eritrea walked out of the East African bloc IGAD in protest as Ethiopian forces entered Somalia to fight militants. A South African High Court ruling has instructed the state attorney to recover from former President Jacob Zuma the money provided for his legal fees. The state has paid between $1 and $2.2 million in legal costs for Mr. Zuma over the past decade. In addition, Mr. Zuma will also have to find the money to pay his lawyers in his ongoing corruption case, which has been adjourned until May next year. The state has been footing the bill for Mr. Zuma's legal fees since 2006, when charges of corruption were first laid against him. The former president faces 16 charges of fraud, corruption and money laundering stemming from hundreds of payments made to him in relation to the South Africa's arms deal. Mr. Zuma, who was forced out of office in February, denies any wrongdoing. The charges were dropped in 2009 but reinstated earlier this year. We now go back to the fire at the DRC election depot. This incident raises major concerns for the election in the DRC, scheduled 10 days from now. The controversial electoral machines have been damaged, but the Election Commission has assured the country that the election will still go on as planned. However, some analysts are crying foul in the wake of this inferno. Joining us now to discuss this is an African Affairs analyst, Mr. Yinka Oyeniji. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
So what do you make of this unfortunate fire incident?
Oh, well, I'll say to you that, did we think that this will happen? Yes. All right. If you consider that DRC Congo has not witnessed any peaceful transition from 1960 till date. So it brings to question whether electoral bodies are indeed very prepared for general elections, which are as important as this. So I ask myself, first of all, were the machines insured? Did we have backup? Because now there are reports that there will be machines moved from other parts of DRC Congo to conduct this election, and nothing would change. But again, for opposition parties and international observers, they won't believe that this won't have a monumental effect on that attempt at transiting. We've had Mobutu Sese Seko, we've had Kabila Senior, we've had Kabila Junior, who says he won't contest until 2023. So it brings to focus how prepared are electoral bodies for general elections.
So, well, several opposition candidates have been calling for these machines to be banned as they believe they could be used to rig the votes. What do you think? Do you suspect any foul play in this?
Well, as of now, those machines have been tested. And the first problem you have is the fact that the batteries will probably not last a long time. So just like Nigeria also did in the last elections, once we know that we can't vouch for authenticity of activities of those machines, then let's not employ them at all. If we are sure that the card readers will work, then we will use them across board. If the card reader, if there's a question of the integrity of the card readers or the machines, then don't use them at all.
So do you think they shouldn't use them?
I think they shouldn't use them in the wake of what we have. Okay, because from what you can see, it's a big question to the preparedness of even security agencies for general elections. The fire was not an accident. It's arson which has to be investigated. Already there are fingers being pointed here and there. And that shows that the elections themselves may be sabotaged. So if you have questions of integrity with respect to important tools of the election, then by all means it shows lack of preparedness, and then please avoid the use of the machines.
But then don't they have some, aren't they a bit reliable? Doesn't this open it for more rigging? Well,
in this circumstance, again, all right, if we've started setting buildings on fire, the building was set on fire. It didn't catch fire by itself. All right? It means that we are not even sure of the security agencies who are supposed to be guarding that place. So the question is not the machines. If this has happened a few days to the elections that are supposed to be held on 23rd of December, then how well prepared is the RC to use machines for these elections? Yeah. Like every other thing. If you have questions with respect to ballot papers, they are not available from wherever they are coming from, or security agencies, you don't have the manpower, it's the same. Whatever you cannot control, going into something as important as this, then you jettison it altogether.
Okay, so with this happening now, what effect is it likely to have on the December 23rd vote?
Well, I'll say to you that if they indeed go ahead and use those machines coming from other parts of the country, then you can be very rest assured that there will be questions raised on the results. There's no doubt about that, all right? Like everywhere, like, I mean, you complain about destruction of campaign materials, you complain about vandalism, you complain about being intimidated. Once you start having things like that, the party that is likely to lose is already gathering its arsenal to challenge the results of the election.
Let's look at this interesting question. The president's mandate ended in 2016, but he still remains in office. And with elections repeatedly delayed, with this latest event in play, do you think the elections will ever hold in the country?
Well, I'll say to you that I think these elections would have to go on. There's no doubt about it. Whatever happens, the elections will go on. Whatever happens as well, this present president is going to have to leave office. The question is, will he recontest in 2023 or not? And he wants to recontest. The international community is not going to meddle in these elections, unfortunately, because the economy of DRC is still very strong. At over $38 billion, that economy is strong. Nobody is really bothered right now because it looks like you have relative peace. The president himself will allow the process to go through, but he wants somebody in office who will hold the seat warm for him till 2023. So the election is straight between the nomination of the incumbent and the opposition. So will it go through? Yes, it will go through. Who will win? We don't know. Will he come back record testing in 2023? No doubt about that.
Like you just said, the international community is not really getting involved in this election.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think this election will be free and fair?
No.
No, why
it's
not?
Not going to be free and fair, like many elections we have in Africa. All right? Elections don't start on the day of voting. Elections start from the day of accumulating voters' registration exercise and all of that, and political parties. Up until this moment, a few days ago, there have still been killings on the streets. You can't go into elections in the midst of warfare. Congo is at war. Like many parts of Africa, sometimes we don't wake up to the reality to believe that is what it is. And you can't go to elections when you have warfare. Elections can only be free and fair when you have peace, like we had in 1993 in Nigeria.
Like you just mentioned, conducting elections in African countries seems problematic at times. Back home here in Nigeria, preparations for the 2019 general elections have been plagued by controversies.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think we are ready for the polls?
Like the last elections, we weren't ready, but we voted in a president. We are not ready right now. We are going to vote in a president. But one thing is for sure, all right? Every passing election brings us closer to where we want to be. I always campaign for youths and young people's involvement and all of that. The last general elections, there was no Veladro Toye, there was no Kingsley Morale, there was no Obi Ezekwesili. So we are going to have them on the ballot at this time. by 2023, maybe we'll be getting there, the semblance of democracy in Nigeria.
So we're definitely not.
We're not there. There's no doubt about that.
How can we get there before then?
Oh, yes, the citizens have to indeed wake up to the reality. All of us have roles to play, all right? There's so much money being pumped into electioneering, even before elections. Take the cost of nomination, cost of campaign. In Lagos is a shame. It looks like one party already has won the elections with what you see. So until we start ensuring that it's no longer about money, but about ideas, ideals, virtue, all right, about social contract, then we'll be getting there, the real elections we are supposed to be having.
Well, African Affairs Analyst, Mr. Yinka Oyeneji, it's been interesting getting your thoughts on this.
It's
I'm glad you could make it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.